Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite comes out in a couple of days, and at first I was super excited for it. I even made a video about it. But then Capcom came out and basically said, hey, here's Marvel 3. Alright, now here's Marvel Infinite. That'll be $60, please. Naturally, I was very disappointed, but it could always get worse. I've actually wanted to do a video on fighting games for a while, but I didn't feel too qualified to talk about them because I suck at all of them. Except for Smash Brothers, but we all know that's not a fighting game.
Damn right.
And neither is Pokken Tournament.
You little fuck!
But while I may not be the most qualified to talk about fighting games in explicit detail, there is one thing I'm good at. Bitching. Turns out they made a Castlevania fighter back in 2008. Something some Castlevania fans weren't too thrilled about when it was announced. I'm not so sure about that. Castlevania has enough lore and characters to pull from that even if fighter wasn't the best genre to pick, it was certainly a hard one to screw up. So now let's go through the ways they screwed it up. I'm gonna read the gameplay section of Judgment's Wikipedia page and you tell me the first problem you hear. The game features 3D environments and uses the motion sensing controls, and you are correct. Not to shit too hard on motion controls, the Wii Remote handled a lot of games fairly well. I don't think fighters are one of them. I also think too much emphasis was put on fighters' finishing moves. A lot look cool, but some flat-out lack sound effects, go on for too long, and do an absurd amount of damage. Then there's the misguided character designs. Not terrible, but misguided. They were done by Takeshi Obata, most known for his illustrations for Death Note, and while he is far from an untalented artist, I don't think he was a good pick for this series. Some characters look alright, like Dracula and most of the Castlevania 3 crew, but if you showed me a picture of this guy and told me that was supposed to be Simon Belmont, I would have punched you in the throat. Then Maria Renard turned into a magical girl, Carmilla, you know, and then Grant, wait, I'm sorry, excuse me? This isn't even Grant! Look, I know NES sprite work leaves a lot up to the imagination sometimes, but how did we go from Hunchback Pirate to Aerobic Mummy? Judgment only barely makes the list. In comparison to the games coming up, this looks Evo-worthy. But it had a lot of potential that I feel was squandered by poor art direction and one singular control decision. The best things this game has going for it is Dracula's Castle looks awesome ported over Smash Brothers, and its soundtrack has godlike remixes of classic Castlevania tracks, rivaling, if not surpassing, the remixes from Castlevania Arcade. But for everything else, what a horrible night to have a curse. And the curse is a bondage kick. Alright, full disclosure, cards on the table. Girl Fight is the only game on this list I have not sat down and physically played myself. But after I explain what's up, I don't think that'll be a problem. To the best of what I can discern from looking at gameplay and reading reviews, well, what few reviews I could even find anyway, they really should have picked a title that stood out more, Girl Fight is essentially a poor man's Dead or Alive. I assume they mean the fighting part of Dead or Alive, because I certainly don't see any beach volleyball around here. And yet the game's key selling point still seems to be women! Women! Women!
Women! Women!
And yet even the fan service aspect, the only aspect they apparently cared about, is lackluster. All the girls have the same figure, same breast size, same face. You would think a ninja and punk Tracer over here would stand out from each other a little bit, but Girl Fight dares to challenge that notion. You can unlock some racy illustrations, cause God forbid you don't just Google your porn like everyone else, but in game they hardly stand out from the drab environments. And I'm sorry, Girl Fight, I didn't quite hear you correctly the first time. Are you telling me you're trying to make a child soldier a turn-on? Oh my god, they literally called her War Child. Dear Lord. The game itself is apparently just mediocre, and if that was its only crime, we would not be talking about it right now. The games coming up play far worse. However, it gets a spot here for sheer laziness. It's true that lots of fighting games exploit sex appeal if the opportunity presents itself, but that's a side note. This game tried to make that the main focus and couldn't even get that right. War Child! Come on! It didn't work when Kojima did it. What made you think you had a shot? I grew up watching a lot of Cartoon Network and playing a lot of Smash Brothers. So when Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion came out, I was immediately on board. In fact, I remember being kind of upset upon finding out it was, at first, only for 3DS, which I didn't own at the time. But then it finally made its way to consoles, and I didn't waste a second picking it up. Whoops. The common complaint I read about this game from reviews is that it rips off Smash Brothers. And honestly, I wish it ripped off Smash Brothers. It might actually be a decent game that way. I don't think any kind of balancing went into this at all. No fighting game is ever truly balanced. There will always be favorable matchups and tier lists. But even in Smash Brothers, you get the occasional insane upset. In this game, don't bother picking anyone who isn't a Powerpuff Girl or Aku. The game looks unappealing too. I know it's hard to combine series with drastically different art styles under one universal art style, but Smash does it. Marvel vs. Capcom does it. Sometimes. What really sucks about this game is that Cartoon Network is home to some of the most memorable shows and characters, so this game inherently had so much potential from the get-go. And to a degree, I still feel that they got a lot of aspects right in the fan service department, like the roster.
Although I think I speak for a lot of us when I say we didn't need 2 versions of Ben 10. Or 1 version of Ben 10. Or Ben 10 ever.
Punch Time Explosion is painfully disappointing at best, but I actually hope a sequel's considered at some point, as long as they do some serious reworking. You think Sega and Sonic Team have no idea what to do with Sonic nowadays? Even before Sega backed out of the console market, they threw Sonic into every genre they had time to get around to. And it's not like it can't be done, it's just, you know. But wait, I'm sorry. I'm a YouTuber about to talk about a bad Sonic game. That's out of line. I'm sorry. That we can't have that. Yeah, I've been informed that that's something that we're just not allowed to do anymore. That's overdone. It's cliche. But all right. I got you. Let's talk about a good Sonic game. Like, Sonic the Fighters has many good points, like it's the first 3D Sonic game. That's good. We all gotta start somewhere. It introduces a bunch of new characters, because if there was one thing missing from the Sonic series, it was characters. The game's pretty easy to play. Players can almost always get away with just mashing buttons, because sometimes your wrist gets tired, you don't want to move around too much. Lots of the characters have the same moves and stances, which was probably easier for the developers, so we could get this game earlier. The Xbox 360 and PS3 re-releases have online play, so you can test your mashing against people who are more mashing-er than you. If you're playing story mode all by yourself, you have only 15 seconds to beat the final boss, which helps me because I'm behind on My Hero Academia as is. I need some time to play catch up. But wait! There's 8 Chaos Emeralds instead of 7? The joke is that last one was the fake complaint, but all the other ones were the real complaints. But if I hadn't pointed that out, there would have been at least 10 people unironically mad at me. But that's just me, YouTuber talking about a bad Sonic game, and that's all the time I have for tonight. So until next time, goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye. Street Fighter II is the first installment in the Street Fighter series, and has since evolved into what is perhaps the most popular fighting game franchise. They're already on Street Fighter V. I mean, they only got 4 more letters after this. They're running out... What? Those aren't letters? What the hell's a Roman numeral? Yeah, even with 2 plastered smack on the front of the logo, it's actually easy to forget a Street Fighter game came before this one. No one ever talks about it. And for good reason. Look, listen, I'm sure back in 1987 it was a technological marvel and it was a masterpiece and it saved fighting games or whatever. Listen, God bless them, what is this garbage? I can't tell if Capcom had no idea what balancing was or if they designed it this way on purpose to make players give up more money. Some say Capcom still does both. Just looking at some footage, even with Ryu right there, you'd be forgiven for not immediately realizing this is supposed to be a Street Fighter game. But that's a nitpick compared to the fact this game is literally unplayable. At least with every other game on this list, you can press buttons and things will happen. Here you can press a button and things might happen. Oh, but this problem only extends to you. The CPU has no problem pulling off moves that will shave off half your health bar before you finish blinking. That is, assuming they don't shave off your entire health bar before you finish blinking. I know combos didn't really become a thing until 2, but even without those, there is no strategy to this game. You can't even switch characters if you're having trouble. Ryu is the only playable character. All you can do is hope the CPU cooperates. 10 times in a row. We interrupt this list to bring you another list. Top 2 Star Wars fighting games, Masters of Teräs Käsi, and Soul Calibur 4. Much like Castlevania, I think Star Wars is a franchise that lends itself nicely to a potential fighter. The one and only time Castlevania tried it, it was coarse, but you could pull some fun out of it if you really truly tried. The one and only time Star Wars tried it, by itself anyway, it was just coarse.
And rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Masters of, I think I pronounced it correctly the first time, but I forgot already, lacks any sort of depth. It looks pretty good for the PS1. It gives me Tekken vibes, which should be a nugget of praise, but it becomes moot once you actually attempt to play. Characters can switch between fisticuffs and weapons, which I guess was supposed to be a key selling point, except why would I ever not use a lightsaber if it's a readily available option? Luke Skywalker is a famous Jedi for a lot of reasons. This is not one of them. Combat is insanely slow, unpolished, and unbalanced. You press a button and it takes the character hours for the corresponding move to come out. It's too easy to score ring outs on your opponents and yourself, and just because Star Wars takes place in space doesn't mean you have to make the characters jump like they're in space! This game came out just before The Phantom Menace, so there's no prequel characters, which sounds like it should be a plus, but honestly, this game is such shite that adding characters like Jar Jar would have helped the game, ironically. Hey, I'd rather play as Jar Jar than a character named Whore!
Darth Vader versus Whore.
Hi, I'm Chris, and I'm here on behalf of Disney to announce a brand new character to the upcoming Star Wars film, The Last Jedi. Her name is Twad, and we firmly believe that she is going to be a great addition to the Star Wars mythos. We know the fans are going to fall in love with Twad. We love our Twad. We hope that all the cosplayers all dress up as Twats.
Dragon Ball Z has had about as many games as they've had transformations. That is to say, a fuck ton. And much like the transformations, the more games they add, the more you start to wonder how many were truly necessary. For every Budokai 3, there's Evolution. For every Xenoverse, there's Connect. And really, both of these were contenders for this spot, but I think Evolution's mostly bad because of Evolution, and Connect's mostly bad because of Connect. Go figure. But Dragon Ball Z Taiketsu wasn't really tied to anything else. It's just really, really, really bland and boring. I think you can squeeze even a little bit of fun out of some bad DBZ games, but Taiketsu doesn't even have that going for it. As a kid, along with Taiketsu, I also owned Supersonic Warriors. And that game had its issues too, but when Supersonic Warriors were stolen from me at summer camp, I was devastated. I remember profusely crying that day. But then when the same exact thing happened to Taiketsu, there was a lot of shitty kids at the summer camp. I did not bat an eye. In comparison to the source material, where fights are fast and frantic, fights in this game play out much slower, and iconic moves from the show are absent, with all the fighters mostly only throwing indiscernible punches, kicks, and the occasional ki blast. The graphics, mostly the character sprites, are in that weird range of they look decent to they look decent, but if you wanted to put that much effort in to begin with, why didn't you just pick a different system instead of a handheld, you weirdo? You know, that range. They attempted to incorporate sky battles, which worked well later in Supersonic Warriors, but you get an awkward transition. Like, I can't even call this a transition, they just straight up do a jump cut, followed by button mashing. Now for a second you might accidentally think, oh wow, this is kinda like DBZ now, but you can't move around up here. Once the mashing ends, both fighters return to the ground to do some more mashing. By the time you've built up enough points to buy one thing at the in-game shop, you realize you could be doing anything else besides looking at low-res screenshots. Thankfully, Arc System Works is currently on record pace to single-handedly save fighting games forever. Twice. Mortal Kombat's popularity in the 90s led to a lot of developers attempting, and failing, to copy its gameplay and style. And if I wasn't remotely concerned with variety, this list would have mostly, if not entirely, consisted of just Mortal Kombat clones. Instead, I decided to pick just one to kinda represent them all as a whole. And what else but Kasumi Ninja? Honestly, I feel like 50% of Kasumi Ninja's problems are thanks to being an exclusive on the Atari Jaguar. First of all, the Atari Jaguar. Second of all, the Atari Jaguar controller. Kasumi Ninja's controls are already bad to begin with. Try playing with this thing, too! Even when a marginally better controller came out, the Jaguar was already on its deathbed by then. The fighting is slack, commands for special moves are awkward to input, and you'll never figure out most of them unless you look them up online, which is more work than it's worth. The graphics look bleak and unappealing, and even the gore doesn't look anywhere as cool as Mortal Kombat. The main, at least I think they're the main, 3 characters are blatant rip-offs of Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Liu Kang, and the rest are forgettable. Even something so trivial as a character select screen is needlessly complicated and hurts my fucking eye holes. The only good part of this game is Angus's infamous crotch fireball attack, a move so stupid that if it was in any other fighting game besides this one, it just might have worked. Maybe when Kasumi Ninja 2 comes out for the Atari box, they'll iron out all the kinks. I'm just kidding, that's not real. Kasumi Ninja 2, I mean. The Atari box is real though. I don't know what that's all about either. When I started jotting down potential nominees for this list, I fully expected I'd end up adding Shrek Super Slam to the finished list. Granted, all I knew about it at the time was that it had a competitive scene and tier list, but I thought that everyone was just having a big ol' meme fest. But no, once I actually started playing it, it actually wasn't terrible.
Well, shit, what am I gonna do now? I already made the video thumbnail ahead of time. I don't want to go back and redo it.
I need a hero. I'm holding out for a hero till the end of the night. He's gotta be strong, fast, and or fresh for the fight.
Fun fact, I've only ever officially owned 2 Game Boy Color games, Shrek Fairy Tale Freakdown and Pokemon Trading Card Game. And I played this one more. I was an idiot. The title screen spells it all out. I mean, how can you not know what you're about to get into? Just look at it, the jokes write themselves, and I'm not touching any of them. Now, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, and I have indeed said it at least once, which is not to call the other 999 times into question, but this game controls like poop, and fighting consists of finding the one move that works and using it exclusively. The only nice thing I have to say about this game is some of the sprite work is actually okay, mostly on the menus. Yeah, even this, as haunting as it is. But once you actually start playing, it looks pathetic. Yeah, you can tell who everyone's supposed to be, and the technology is limited, but I have an easy solution. Just don't make the game! Because you know what else is limited? The source material. When the game came out, there was only one Shrek movie to pull from, so they had to pick characters like the Gingerbread Man and the Dragon, but scale them to be the same size as the other fighters, and it just looks stupid. And Sakurai says he can't add Ridley to Smash Brothers. That's baloney! There was that time they put Ridley in Shrek, and everything was just fine. It's a joke, relax. Don't get your jigglies in a puff.
I repeated myself a lot throughout this video. It's kind of hard for me to find ways to say bad gameplay and bad controls 10 times in a row without sounding like a broken record. But, we're talking about Shaq Fu now, so, we're definitely not changing.
Are the controls terrible? Yes. Is the game sluggish? Yes. Are you better off pressing buttons at random? Yes. Does the story mode suck? Yes. Is there obnoxious fan service? Yeah, no, actually. Thankfully, the cat lady keeps a shirt on. But everything else, yes! But why is it number 1 if I just have the same exact complaints again? Why does this one stand out? It doesn't.
I got nothing. Or, I thought I did anyway. But then I came up with one question that I haven't been able to find a satisfactory answer to. Why was this game made? And that was a question that I could answer for all the other games.
Sonic the Fighters was the accidental result of a Fighting Vipers programmer getting really bored one day. Kasumi Ninja was a failed cash grab for Mortal Kombat's audience. DBZ Taiketsu probably just wanted to promote Broly a bit. Punchtime Explosion wanted to take advantage of Cartoon Network's popular catalog of shows and characters, and Girl Fight had tits. Misguided reasons and/or misguided results, sure, but I know why the games were made. I cannot, for the life of me, fathom why someone thought this was a good idea.
And just thinking about it is giving me a shack attack. Oh.
You alright there, dude?